What's up, Sisu Circle, and welcome to another episode of Who's the Baby, a podcast where me and my new emotional support mug talk everything in child. On today's episode, we are going to further dive into authenticity. Going to be talking about embracing authenticity in our modern world. It's such a buzzword these days. I want to break it down and get to my working definition of it. Want to talk about why it might be so difficult for some of us to be authentic in today's world, and explain how this resonates within our vibrational being, our spiritual being. And as always, my anecdotal stories, which I love to tell and kind of fill in the gaps for everyone to get to know me a little better. So without further ado, let's get started. Authenticity, such a buzzword, but what does it really mean to be authentic? Why is it so hard for some of us to achieve being authentic today in this modern world? And especially, in a world filled with filters, expectations, constant pressure to be something you're not, and AI. Those are all very specific reasons why it might be difficult for some of us. But I want to kind of talk about the working definition of authenticity. So, according to the Oxford Dictionary, it's of undisputed origin or genuine. The Merriam-Webster's definition just means not false or imitation. Okay, so how can we relate that to humans or for us being our authentic selves? For me, it means being your truest self. But more than that, it means remaining true to yourself when faced with a challenge or adversity. So living in alignment with your values, your beliefs, your desires, regardless of any external pressure. So not only does it mean being honest with others all of the time, but also being honest with yourself, which I think more importantly, being honest with yourself. It also means accepting all parts of you, even the parts that you deem less than or unlovable. But I want to talk about authenticity in terms of the power authenticity has. Authenticity is a 364 hertz wave. Okay, so if we're talking vibrational waves, this is the highest human emotion that we can achieve. It's higher than joy. It's higher than love. We thought love for eons was the highest vibrational energy. It's not. Recent science has shown that authenticity resonates at a higher hertz at 364. If I can put a little graphic in here, you can see the different chart, if you will, from low vibrations to high vibrations and what this means. And we always say, oh, that's so low vibration. There really is truth in that. So for example, shame usually resonates at the lowest vibrational energy, right? If you are building up from there on the hertz scale, you can actually physically see how authenticity is the highest vibrational energy on that scale. Now, what does that mean? Humans also are vibrational beings. We are energy, we are light, and that is another sense, I will say, that we have is noticing or attracting or fields of energy, right, that are resonating within those same vibrational fields. So, if you ever noticed yourself feeling maybe a bit slow or sluggish or feeling just sort of drained after you've dealt with someone, that might be because that person that you've been dealing with is not vibrating at the same level as you. Let's say that their vibration is a lower vibration. So that is going to basically suck or remove or take energy from your personal vibrational field. On the other note, you might have someone in your life that you're like, wow, that person is just on. They are up, they are light and energy, and they're all the things. That person's vibrating in a higher vibrational frequency than you are at that moment. At the beginning of season 2, I've mentioned that we would be getting more into chakras and energy and light fields and things like that. This is the part where I'm trying to integrate this into modern reality, modern day society. So your lowest chakra, right, is your root chakra. So every chakra has a color, every chakra has its place in your body, okay? And a lot of this comes down to your endocrine system, which is really sort of amazing, this like spiritual element and scientific. I love sort of marrying the two because I have a really hard time sometimes with the woo-woo and the faith and the believing. So I kind of need the science to kind of back it up a little bit and help me understand the why. I'm a very, very big why person. If we are looking at your chakras, which hopefully I can get a little graphic up here, you are looking at the 7 levels or layers of your points of your endocrine system that are noted in ancient societies for having its own emotions, having its own place, and having its own energetic fields or what they do for you. And they all have their colors and their alignment, and they're aligned within your body. For example, your root chakra, this is the lowest one. It's underneath your sacrum. It is your very primal, sort of instinctual, basic foundational needs. And as you move up, you can kind of see how this resonates with the vibrations that we had talked about earlier, is that the more awareness and the more alignment in terms of stacking these things in alignment with one another, the higher vibrations you'll be able to emit your energy and essentially attract in people on those same planes. That might be a lot of woo-woo. I promise it will all come together. I will do more episodes in further detail on exactly what all of that means. But I hope that it's sinking in a little bit in terms of we are made up of not just our conscious energy or our conscious minds. There's so much more happening underneath the surface. And a lot of that has to do with not only our brain, but our bodies, right? And, I've spoken to people that are like, well, I don't always have emotions. Like, I'm not always feeling something. Okay, well, consciously you may not be, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other things happening within this system, your root, your heart chakra, your throat chakra. It doesn't mean that your body is not receiving in energy from other beings. And it doesn't necessarily have to be other humans. It can be a situation, an environment. And all of this is, again, sort of tying into this intuitive feeling. But that's not a feeling that you are cognitively processing all of the time. This is more of a shift in your body or a gut feeling, or you might notice an energy drain or an energy input, or so these are things that are beyond the conscious level brain activity thinking. So that's what I mean. And why this is so important, and particularly for authenticity, is because when you are being authentic or when you are showing up authentically, the people you are with are going to feel that vibration. They are going to have that same input of that feels correct, or that feels right, or that feels real, okay? Versus wanting to step away or shut down or remove or whatever, sort of feelings of negativity. And whether or not we have the awareness yet, we do. Our body knows. It's just us having the awareness and taking the accountability, having the time to sit and reflect on, again, not necessarily about what you were thinking, but the way your body might have been reacting, the way you might have been showing up in that certain or given situation. And that can be hard, right? That can be hard to get in tuned with the knowing, the understanding, the awareness. And that, if we look at our chakra chart, is pretty high up there on the enlightenment scale, if you will. So it takes practice, it takes work, it takes time to really get to know those parts of you. And this is where authenticity fits in, right? Am I listening to my body? Am I listening to what feels good? Am I listening to what I know in my heart to be true? Am I acceptant of whatever it is that may be? Or am I challenging? Am I fighting? Am I consciously fighting or arguing or conflicting with this knowing? I've talked about in the past, this conflict is where a lot of things happen in our bodies that are unexplained. So the inflammation, the chronic fatigue, the disease, this is where all of this comes into play. Essentially, if we are out of alignment and we don't take the time to cognitively sit and process and refine and digest and accept, then our body and our mind are constantly at odds with one another. That takes a lot of energy, and sometimes that can even lead to disease, which we are now finding more and more relevant and more true. Little soapbox there. All right, so let's talk about why it might be challenging to be authentic in this day and age, or how societal norms and expectations can create conflict within ourselves and our authenticity. First and foremost, social media is a huge part of this, in that it highlights everyone's best moments, or only the parts of ourselves that we choose to post. No one really wants to post themselves going through a tough time or those vulnerable parts. People tend to shy away from posting those things and posting the good memories or posting the cute photos or posting the fun thing they did. But is that the reality or the whole picture of who they truly are? Not likely. Also, our workplace culture has really gotten us to a point of fitting in with the pack, fitting in with the herd. And that essentially comes down to our basic human desires so that we don't get left, so that we don't have to struggle. It's easier for us to survive if we fit in. Sometimes that might mean us chameleoning a little bit, or maybe not quite doing what feels great all the time, but trying it with our conscious brains to justify our actions or our emotions, or to suppress even a lot of our emotions, our feelings, our truest character. And also, I think society in general, right? As social media is becoming more and more popular and more relevant into our day-to-day lives, we have shifted to kind of value appearances over reality. People are choosing to post or choosing what moments they share with the world and what moments they suppress. And is that reality? No, that's a version of reality. Is that the truest form? No, not at all. But let's talk about how can we be a bit more authentic? How can we get to that place? A lot of us still have familial pressure, friends pressure to the shoulds in life. We should go to college. I should take this job. These are the expectations my parents put on me, or whomever, even ourselves. If I don't go to college, then I'll be not good enough, or I'll be a failure, or, all these stories that we tell ourselves. And what is that basically coming down to? And that's all fear. That is just fear-based thinking. And fear can be a great thing, right? It's one of our primal instinctual emotions, and we have it for a reason, but it's a very low vibrational feeling and emotion, and that's because it was designed to be a very quick, specific, so threat, remove threat, get us out of there, fear. That's all it was intended to do when we were first humans. Nowadays, we know that a lot of people are shaming or living in fear all the time. It's causing so much havoc on our health, on our general mental state, on our well-being in general, our bodies, holding on to fear, and it really is taking a negative toll on how we show up physically. How do we remove the shoulds, remove the fear? And that's basically what having that sort of reflection and taking that time to sit in your knowing and in yourself to understand, am I doing this to please? Am I doing this to show up the way people think I should show up? Or is this really truly what I want? And if you've never done that before, it can feel very strange. It can feel extremely weird to be like, I don't actually know. I don't actually know, or how am I supposed to know what it is I truly want or what it is I desire? That can be a bit of a scary thing in and of itself. That fear leaves people from doing it at all. One thing that we can sort of help get into feeling more authentic or feeling more of ourselves is through vulnerability. And as Brené Brown puts it, staying vulnerable is a risk we have to take if we want to experience connection. Authenticity is the bridge to true human connection, but it takes courage to cross it. I love that. I think it is so well said, in that vulnerability is the one thing that people are so afraid of. We're so afraid to show ourselves. We're so afraid to put ourselves out there and give it all away. I mean, I know I am. I know for sure I am guarded. I have my shit that I hold tight to, and only the people who really know get to know, kind of thing. I mean, we all do. But vulnerability is not a weakness. It is a strength. It is a bridge to connection. Ultimately, a lot of us think that we can outsmart or kind of like skirt our way around into getting these connections while not doing the tough part. And the only way to get through the shit is through the shit, unfortunately. I mean, there's no nice or cute, better way to put it. That's just how life goes. So vulnerability is the key to building that connection with others and remaining authentic. And in vulnerability, there's fear as well, in terms of I'm fearful that if I'm vulnerable or if I show up a certain way, I'm going to be rejected, or I'm going to lose this person or lose this connection, lose this relationship. And that fear is real, of course. But what authenticity does for us is that it allows us to have the acceptance that if I show up vulnerably and I do lose that connection, I know in myself, in my awareness, in my being, that that was the best thing for me, or that connection, that relationship, whatever it is, wasn't for me. So that is the difference. And that is why we need to try our best to get to that point of listening and acceptance and understanding of authenticity, is so that we don't have to keep these ingenuine relationships. The stronger connection you have with yourself, the better that will get, the easier that will feel for you to let go of the things that are not in alignment, that are not serving you, that are not moving you in an upward spiral, not in a downward spiral, if that makes any sense. While it may be challenging, the benefits of living an authentic life are profound. When we embrace who we truly are, life becomes more fulfilling. Relationships become deeper. We feel more at peace with ourselves. You can alleviate stress. You can increase your self-confidence, self-acceptance, like I've talked about. You become stronger in your belief systems. You become more rooted in your being. It reduces stress and anxiety from not having to pretend or not having to wear masks. It enhances your creativity and your clarity and decision making. So what feels good and what feels right will come more easily to you, and that will allow for the other things to just fall off, right? So things that don't feel good or things that aren't actually serving you, you can just be rid of them and feel good about letting go of the things that aren't working for you. Real life examples, we can think of people like Oprah or Elon Musk. You don't have to love these people, but everyone can sort of see their rooted and unwavering commitment to being their true selves, even if it's not the most popular opinion in the room or they're not the most popular voice. It's like authentic people have this knowing, I'm on a mission, I'm here for a purpose, I'm here for this reason. And even if you don't understand me, that's totally okay. Like, I understand me, and this is what I'm doing anyway. And it's such a beautiful thing to watch. And honestly, when we look at people in history who have had that mentality, those have been the apex performers in human existence. So people who were misunderstood for their time, now they're considered, a genius in whatever field that they came up in. It can be scary. It can be a bit lonely. It can feel awkward at first if you've never put yourself out there. Right? Vulnerability is tough. But in the long run, you will alleviate a lot of negative emotions, diseases. So let's talk about some strategies as to how you can cultivate a more authentic being for yourself. Number one is self-reflection. Spending time understanding your values, your goals, your passions. Be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, but truly getting to know, where is it that I stand on things? How is it that I decide my moral compass? What are the goals I have for my life? And what makes me passionate? What makes me happy? What makes me motivated? Some ways we can do this. Journaling is awesome and wonderful. There are tons of prompted tools that you can use. Meditation is also another great tool. If you've never done a guided meditation, they're very good at helping you clear the space in your head or clear out your cognitive processing brain and getting to a more somatic way of being. There's tons of things to help you out. Number two, I would say, is set boundaries. Learn to say no to things that don't align with you. And even if that means disappointing other people, doing what is right for you. And you will know the difference within your brain and your body, because once you've done it, it will either feel really good or it will feel like you're fighting and arguing and all of that within yourself. Well, the more you get better at practicing that, and first of all, knowing what those boundaries are, which is another self-reflection piece, and then setting those boundaries into work or into action, you will notice a more aligned, more in tuned presence about yourself. As I talked about a little bit before, number three, embracing vulnerability. So allowing yourself to be open about your struggles and about your imperfections with others. And this doesn't necessarily mean you have to post every Instagram feed of you sobbing about whatever show you watched or whatever, but it just means taking a chance. Let's see, in some of your friendships, if you've never showed up, if you've never been that person with someone, try it out. try being a little vulnerable, sharing something about yourself that might have made you a little scared or a little unsure or whatever it may be. The more you can practice and try to let that vulnerable side out of you, the easier and easier it will become. And you will notice the more people will share with you, and that should feel really good in your body, and that will deepen and strengthen those relationships if they are meant to remain in your life. Number 5 is acceptance of your imperfections. So authenticity doesn't mean we have to be perfect all the time. It's okay for us to make mistakes, because mistakes is our best form of learning. This is something that I struggle with a little bit. I don't love being a beginner. I have laughed about this a lot in my fitness journey. My coach is always saying, well, how many times have you tried this before? And I was like, well, I've never tried this before. And he's like, so how do you expect to be good at it if your body has never done this before? We set these crazy expectations for ourselves, and that you watch something once, you're like, oh, I can do that. I should be able to do that. Yeah. And then you try it and you're like, whoa, that's way harder than I ever anticipated it being. Well, yeah. Okay. Giving yourself some grace. I'm very hard on myself. I am definitely a critic, and that's something that I've had to work through regularly. Being easy on myself, taking care of myself, talking to myself as I would my best friend, being support and showing up as encouragement rather than shitting on myself all the time. As a child, I was at the younger part of my generation of cousins. So there was 26 first cousins, aunts and uncles, and everybody. We kind of grew up as one big extended unit. And a lot of us were fighting for attention. I'm very competitive, and I know that's where that has come into play for me. But also, I'm a high risk taker and not a consequence thinker over, because you want that attention. You want people, look what I can do. Hey, Tia, mom, look what I can do. So, I mean, knowing who I am authentically, part of that is I'm super competitive. I have high expectations. I want to be a high performer. I want the attention from my loved ones, even though those things might not be amazing qualities. It's things that I accept about myself and that I'm learning to work within, trying to better show up or use those things to my advantage in a situation and not always shit on the parts of myself I don't like. That has become a huge lesson for me. Authentically me, growing up, I knew who I was. I had a very secure attachment to the adults in my life. I had a very strong sense of my beliefs, and I think that attributed a lot to my matriarch and the situation I grew up. So I had, the aunt who was kind of the crazy, silly aunt that everybody loved to be around because she just, it's just who she is all the time. I had the very maternal aunt who was super nurturing and comforting, and, you just wanted to snuggle in her arms. And if you got hurt, she was the one you ran to or called. And then, my mom was the boss ass bitch. She's the doer. She gets anything done. She is like, keeps the beehive safe and protected and gets shit done. And then the matriarch at the top, was like Queen Bee. She was like, you guys are just gonna cater to me because I'm the one. And everybody was like, yes, we are. So having those examples or having those females in my life definitely, helped me be that strong, secure person, and helped me have that awareness and understanding that who I am is who I am, and who I am is okay, and I feel good that I had the support of those people around me. All my cousins, we were very supportive of one another. There was a lot of love in that household, and that really sort of shaped a lot of who I was. And I don't think I really necessarily became like somewhat insecure or even knew how to deal with insecurities probably until post-puberty. It was probably like end of high school is probably when I first started feeling a bit insecure. And then college, really. It was like, because I grew up in a very small town, and then I went to a college that was very large, and there was over 60,000 people. And it was like, oh, okay, well, this is different. I felt good about what I brought to the table. I think there's just more dimensions to knowing who you are, but also having that neuroplasticity to say, I can work on this, or I can, still be better. Or I think for me, I was really good at calling out my mistakes and calling out my challenges and not thanking myself enough for the things I did well. or the way I show up for people well. Even coming to that realization now is a big life lesson. We can always be learning, we can always be doing better, but feeling good about my strengths and all the things that are serving me and about that person and how I'm showing up. Before we wrap up, let's clear up some misconceptions about authenticity. I think a lot of people think being authentic means whatever's on your mind without a filter, without changing your opinion, but that's really not the case. Authenticity doesn't mean you're never going to change or grow. Authenticity is about evolving in a way that is staying true to the values and not necessarily remaining the same forever. So I fell into that trap of, well, if this is who I am, then this is who I am. And the mistakes I was making was like, oh, well, shit, that feels shitty, but like, I guess that's who I am. So having that understanding, having that neuroplasticity to say, wow, that really didn't go the way I wanted it to, and I really fucked up. And how do I now show up vulnerably to make this better or to correct or repair this relationship? Or how do I change that in a way that feels good, that I don't have to go through that again? That's a huge misconception. Number 2, being authentic means being brutally honest. This is something that I struggled with throughout my early teens for sure. So reality, being honest is kind with empathy. And I think Brene Brown, again, is the one that says honest is kind. It's always kind. However, there's a difference between brutally honest, hurt someone's feelings, or brutally honest to show up in a way that's truthful for you, that feels good in your body without being hurtful. And I understand that hurt happens. Sometimes you can't get around that, but there is a delivery, right? There is a tact. There is a way that you can go about the conversation and be honest and be truthful without being hurtful or without the intent of being, I'm going to get you. So on the next episode, I talked a little bit about vulnerability as well. Those things do obviously intertwine. I think next week we will discuss repair, and why I think that is so important for us right now is that in fear or us not wanting to be vulnerable is because there is that fear of repair or repairing that relationship. Hopefully you guys will stay tuned. I know this was a long one. Thank you for sticking it out with me on this journey through authenticity. I love this continuous growth process for me. I love talking about my journey and how I'm showing up and reparenting my little inner child, my little inner human. Most of it's processing and just acceptance and moving onward. From me and my new emotional support mug, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.